Hey guys, this is Dmitry with Hard Rock Knux and welcome back to another review. The Raven line from SilverStone carries something very special with me, as this was the very first case I reviewed for Hard Rock Knux some 2 years ago. Of course, since I have learned to make sure my white balance is alright, but I am happy to see a new addition to the Raven series with this RV04 released at $160. Design-wise, this feels like a Raven with the rotated motherboard tray, of course a window to showcase the internals, and a similar angular characteristics on the exterior plastics. One of the unusual traits of the RV04 is the front door, and right away I could see this being a deciding factor to look elsewhere. Now for one, it just feels flimsy. It doesn't have any rigidity and experiences a lot of flex, and the most annoying part is it doesn't fully close. It's not magnetic, but instead held in by clips that with a whiff of air would just fly open. The somewhat large gap between the door and the top frame does disturb the uniform look. Also, the internal frame itself is quite compact, and the added length of the front element makes the RV unnecessarily long. Behind the front panel is a removable fine dust filter with dual 180mm intake fans that can actually cool the RV04 very well with just those two fans. Plus, you can regulate the speed of each fan with low to high settings, and there are two optical slots above. USB 3 and audio ports are located on the side. It's the same side as the window, so it really shouldn't be a problem for placement. Now, the whole idea of this plastic front element is to provide the aesthetic Raven look without compromising on front airflow. The large gap allows those air penetrators to intake air without resistance, with close to 2 inches of clearance. I like the concept, but very disappointed at the flimsy and poor construction of the front panel. The power and reset buttons are located at the top. Both can be accessed with the panel closed and open. The top panel design is mixed in with that of a wing. I actually do like it, and the limited ventilation is there for your power supply. This is supposed to be installed with a fan facing up, and good news, we have a removable dust filter. And take a look at the back. As I mentioned, the power supply is installed at the top, followed by 8 PCI slots and exhaust fan at the bottom with fan not included. And also, this type of layout will prevent any all-in-one water coolers with the 240mm radiators, so the RV04 is pretty much airflow exclusive. Taking off both panels, the first thing you notice is the rotated motherboard tray with your CPU cooler at the bottom, and you'll see the extra features SilverStone includes to complement this layout. Now, storage-wise, everything is right there in the main compartment with 3.5-inch drive cage on the left that has a bit of padding on the inside to prevent audible vibrations. Also, this isn't exactly toolless, as the cage is mounted with screws, and so are the drives inside the drive cage. This isn't really a hassle, but we've gotten accustomed to drive brackets and toolless assembly. The two platforms at the bottom can also house additional mechanical drives. These are toolless, and once inserted, there's a very clever strap that allows you to remove the drives without any hassle. Just pull on the strap and the drives will pop out. There's also a little hook where you can put the straps once the drives are in place. So very innovative from SilverStone, I have to give them that. All the SATA connections are properly accounted for at the rear with enough spacing for your cables. You can still install the drives facing the front panel, but you are limited to 90-degree SATA cables because of that clearance. Now, the platform underneath the CPU cooler has an implemented support structure with this adjustable raising mechanism that can be lowered or raised depending on the width of your tower. Plus, it's on a rail system that can be adjusted for the length of your heatsink, or you can completely remove it if you don't need it. But I would say this would certainly be useful during transport, or just provide additional support for massive CPU coolers like the Noctua NHD14. Now, both the platforms can be removed from the bottom for installation of solid-state drives. Now, I'm glad we have at least SSD support, but this is going against user-friendly assembly, as 2.5-inch drives are secured in from the bottom, which is alright, but once you place back the platforms, wiring becomes a bit of a challenge. But in case you need to replace any of the SSDs, you have to go through the entire process again, and for a 2013 chassis, this just isn't right. I do, however, love the fact that RV04 is cooled by just 2 fans, so the chassis' full cooling potential is utilized straight out of the box. The shroud for the top fan is a bit restrictive, and so much plastic isn't really needed. Luckily, it is removable, and I would recommend doing so. Flipping the case around, we find a lot of cutouts, unfortunately not grommeted. Again, something for a chassis of this caliber and this price. I find this a bit confusing. There isn't much room to work with, but enough for solid cable management. And to simplify your assembly process, here comes off the motherboard tray. It's actually very useful and a lot easier to install big CPU heatsinks off the case. And here I begin with the assembly, mounting on the motherboard and power supply at the top, making sure the fan is facing up, of course, otherwise it'll be mingling in with your hot graphics card. The large cutout at the top also helps to guide all the cables where they need to go. And check this out, the build looks very clean despite those drives sticking out, but this orientation is necessary for proper airflow delivery from those front intake fans. Also notice how far the 3.5-inch drives are sticking out. This will mean you will have to deal with those SATA cables or use some type of low profile cables, as otherwise they may interfere with your fans on your heatsink. Now many of you will be happy to hear no more saggy graphics card with this GPU support bracket. You attach it with a thumb screw at the top and it covers all 8 PCI slots, which is awesome to see. You then attach this additional piece with another thumb screw and your graphics card is sag free. This is an awesome feature, especially for multi-GPU setups. I only wish this wasn't as bland of a piece of plastic, but instead incorporated some type of Raven design. GPUs up to 13 inches are supported. This is with the fan shroud in place. And after everything's connected, the rear looks alright and it sure can handle a lot more. And with the panel closed, the RV04 doesn't exactly scream elegant internals. The window could be a tad smaller to hide the bottom platforms and those drives that are sticking out. Now, I do appreciate the compact nature of the internals and utilization of the space, with support for 6 mechanical and 4 solid-state drives, removable motherboard tray to help with assembly, and its own power supply chamber to help with clean cable management. The 2 support brackets for CPU and GPU are handy, and designed for excellent airflow out of the box is something the Raven series is really known for. However, I wasn't expecting that many drawbacks on the chassis that I was so looking forward to from 2 years ago. Starting with the front panel that is flimsy, and honestly surprised to see something like this from SilverStone. It just makes the chassis bigger than it has to be. Next are the incredibly inconvenient SSD mounts and the sticking out 3.5-inch drives that are the opposite of user-friendly. This chassis also doesn't take into account all-in-one water cooling systems with the 240mm radiators that are becoming so extremely popular, and I feel like having a power supply chamber moved to the bottom instead with conventional motherboard orientation would allow more flexibility with cooling. Now the RV04 unfortunately comes with too many limitations for the price, so if in 2 years we are to see an RV05, I just won't keep my expectations this high. So thanks guys for watching, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.